Hey guys, how's it going? So, with the anniversary, we saw that we get basically an ML5 selector. It's a new Moonlight connection, kind of like the one that you get at the beginning of the game, where you can choose someone like Arbiter Vildred, Spectre Tenebria, etc. So they're making a new one, and they're probably also making a few others in the future. So it seems like for every single one of the Moonlight Theater episodes, they're going to give us a selector. Not right this second, but in the future they'll add more. So it seems like they're starting with the Fallen Land one, which has these 7 characters, and I'll say which ones I think people should grab and why. But it seems like in the future they're also going to be making one for Runway Fighter and Zero Defect City, 2 separate, or maybe 1 combined, we're not really sure. But I'll also talk about that right after we talk about these characters, just for you to maybe plan for the future as well. So let's first just talk about this one, let's get right into it. The 2 best characters are Lilias and Mediator Kawerick. That's kind of obvious to most people. Now, a lot of people are asking stuff like, well, I don't really play much PvP. What about PvE? Well, all these characters are essentially for PvP, not really PvE, but if you're going more for PvE, I guess Lilias and then maybe Mediator Kawerick or something like that. But anyways, these are the 2 strongest characters I would grab, and I would actually say Mediator Kawerick over Lilias. The reason being, I think that debuffs are really hard to deal with. He's the only cleanser in the game that gets to ignore the opponent putting debuffs on him, essentially. He doesn't have to build any effect resist, you can't get unlucky with any debuffs landing on him and then, oh, suddenly it doesn't work. None of that stuff. So I would actually say he's the #1 character to possibly. Then I would say Lilias. They're almost tied, but I just think I recommend a character like this one. Then we have Remnant Violet and ML Vivian. I would say this is kind of like the second tier. So if you have both of these and you're considering who to go for, I would go for maybe one of these. Remnant Violet is really good when you're playing aggressive and you have the first turn advantage, so you pick a character like Lilias, Lua, any of that kind of stuff, right? Because a lot of the characters that counter him are often not able to really be picked earlier in the draft, so you can usually pick him near the end, and he's a great late pick in drafts. He's very strong, actually, when you use him correctly. You obviously can't just draft him into like Angel Light or something. ML Vivian is great versus Spectre Tenebria, and also just a good DPS that can survive big damage for the most part. Sure, she has a lot of characters she's weak against. She gets overwhelmed by too many attacks, or overwhelmed by, like, you know, characters like Karina, for instance, Lethe, that just kill her. So I think that kind of hurts her, especially characters like Lethe. But in general, she's a pretty solid, good AoE DPS and nice to reach for Spectre Tenebria, and also helps the team out a bit. Then the third tier, I would say, are these 3. So you don't see them as much as you used to. I would say ML Elena is great for Arena and Guild Wars. She's really useful for certain cleave teams with Ran, and I would say Pavel's kind of the same. In fact, I run both of them together with Ran in Guild War and Arena. And I think that they pair together pretty nicely, and they're useful. And then there's Death Dealer Ray. So he's for a more slow playstyle, all about debuffs, but the thing is, these 3 characters aren't really used much overall. So if you're just going for like Guild War and Arena, then I would say maybe her and maybe him. If you're going just for RTA, I would say probably these 2. He's good for Cleave, he's good for Standard, but you don't really see much Death Dealer Ray at the moment. People are so scared of debuffs that they draft in ways where you can't really utilize them as well at the moment. ML Elena is never really going to be used in RTA. She's too awkward to use, doesn't contribute enough. And ML Pavel, you don't really see him a lot in RTA. Some people use him a bit, but comes and goes in popularity. So, you know, if you're really into Cleave and you already have the other stuff, you could consider it. But so, in conclusion for these, I would say Mediator Kawerick, then ML Lilias, but pretty much the same. Then I would say one of these 2, maybe more preference to Remnant Violet, and then I would say any of these 3. Realistically, go for the character that you like the most. Go for the character that you think will give you yourself the most enjoyment. That's more important than picking a character that's just best for the meta or something. But these 2 characters would make your life a lot easier. Now, let's move on to this. So, I want to talk about what characters I thought would be best for Runway Fighter and for Zero Defect City as well, since we might be getting a selector. I'm going to talk as though we get 2 separate selectors, but maybe it's one that combines both of them. But let's just talk about this. They're probably going to have ML Rwana in here, I'd assume, but I don't know for a fact, but I'll assume ML Rwana is here. So I would say the best character from this selection is probably Lone Crescent Bologna at the moment, although Designer a little bit is also very good. Lone Crescent Bologna is great versus ML Landy, just very solid DPS, really useful to have, but especially because ML Landy, she moves up a bunch. But Designer a little bit is very close behind, because Designer a little bit Just really good aggressive cleanser. You don't see her a lot at the moment though, because people need like multiple cleanses. People aren't really going for single use cleanses that often. And a lot of the cleave teams aren't as susceptible to designer low bet, so you don't see a ton of her. So I'd maybe put her a little bit below Bologna at the moment, but overall she's a real solid character. Then after, I think I would say ML5 would probably be after that. Now, I know a lot of people think ML5 sucks, and they say buff ML5. The thing with ML5 is she's really good in super high whale cleave teams. She can be really strong. But that's basically a cleaver aggro kind of whaley sort of team. You don't really see her anywhere else at the moment. So, I mean, she's not amazing for most people, but she works in that kind of team. And then I would say top model Uruka might be last, sadly, and they're my favorite character in the game because realistically, just don't really have much use. They're not super fast. They're not crazy for team support. They don't have survivability. They just don't really have anything going for them at the moment, and it's a bit of a shame. So I'd really like to see her buffed in the future, but I digress. Anyways, I would say Lone Crescent Bloater, then Designer a little bit, then Rwana, then Top Model, if they make a selector for this. Then, if they make a selector for Zero Defect City, so the final character that would probably be here would probably be ML who's considered one of the worst ML5s in the game, along with Rwana at the moment. But I would say the #1 character would probably be Last Strider Crow. He's one of the only tanks in the game that's used right now. It's pretty much airwall #1, and then people consider him to be kind of like #2, right? And he's a really strong, really powerful unit. He's on banner right now, and people are debating whether him or Lionheart Surmia. If you want to go for the more long-term approach and maybe slightly riskier, because we don't know how this is going to work in the future, then you could just go for Lionheart Surmia and then maybe wait to get him or something. But yeah, he's a really, really insanely strong unit. Second place, I'd say Architect Leica. And what can I say? 99% of the time she gets picked, she gets banned because she instantly kills at least a fourth of their team. You pick her at the end of the draft, especially when you have first turn advantage or your first pick in the draft. Insanely powerful unit, just wipes somebody out. So strong, a staple in many, many matches at the moment. Then I would probably say Operator Sigrid would go next. Operator Sigrid, you don't really see that much of her anymore. Sometimes she gets used by some aggro players, but not really that popular at the moment. I wouldn't especially recommend her. And then last place, I'd probably say ML Hey, maybe he gets a buff. He is more likely to get a buff and become decent than probably Operator Sigrid. I guess you could say that. Also, he seems pretty fun, even if he is so bad. But that's pretty much what I would say for Zero Defect City. If they combine the two, then we could talk about that in the future, but we're not really sure on that at the moment. That's kind of what I would say for all of the characters for this selectors that are going to be coming out. This is the only one that we know for sure exactly how it works, and that is going to be coming out very soon, I believe on the 31st. As for the other ones, that's in the future, and this is more speculation. But all in all, just in final conclusion, what I recommend is Meteor Kawerick, then ML Lilias, probably then ML Violet, then probably ML Vivian, and then these three are really a toss-up based on what you like or what you need or what kind of fits your playstyle a little bit. And especially depending on how much Arena Guild War you care about. But that's about it. I hope that this helped. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.